need to go to a different link. Text me if you don't have it and I will send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay.
much smaller.
Excuse me, who is A Ortiz? This is Alma.
Alma, that's my assistant principal at Ramirez Thomas. If you could let her in, that would be great.
Yeah, she's already in. I was just wanting to make sure who that was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like the gang's pretty much all here.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail. We need to come back from executive session. Secretary Garcia.
Madam President, I would like to take the Board of Education out of executive session where we discussed the purchase, acquisition, or disposal of real property, and El Camino Real County property, which no action was taken as a motion.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and second. We'll do a roll call vote. We do not have Vice President Price at this
No,
stage.
but Madam President, are we on? Are we live now?
Usually
You
once
are,
we
Dr.
go
Garcia.
live, we don't go unlive. There's actually just a slate for a long time. So sorry.
Okay, because it says currently in executive session. Okay, got it.
And Alma, you did confirm that, right?
Yes, correct. You're live.
Thank
Sorry,
you very
Madam
much.
President.
No worries. So we'll do a roll call vote on coming out of executive session. We do not currently have Vice President Price. Secretary Garcia,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes. Yes.
Board Member Bozay,
Yes.
and the President votes yes. Thank you very much. We are back from executive session. Moving on to item 3 on our agenda, introduction of interpreter. Dr. Garcia.
Okay, Madam President. Para servicio de traducción en español, marque 701-802-5152, número de acceso 4277-932#. Por favor, mantenga su teléfono en silencio durante la traducción. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Okay. Roman numeral 4 is our school board showcase, starting with the El Dorado Advanced Band. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to introduce our music coordinator, April Pickrell, who will introduce tonight's performance.
Hello, I'm April Pickrell. I'm the music education coordinator. And tonight I present to you the El Dorado Community School Advanced Band. The band director is Maurice Norman. This award-winning band program consistently earns superior ratings at the music performance assessment and the state band competition. The winter concert will be available on December 16th through YouTube. Details will be available on the El Dorado website and Facebook page. It will only be available for 1 week, so be sure to watch it. Please enjoy the El Dorado Advanced Band under the direction of Maurice Norman.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pickrell.
And hold on. There.
Two, three.
That was incredible. An incredible piece of work as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. They did a great job. I'm very proud of them.
Good stuff. Thank you very much for being here as well.
Madam Chair, Madam President, can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Secretary Garcia.
Are they doing that from Zoom, like the bands at everybody's houses? How is that working? But they did an excellent job. Very good.
It's quite complicated. Each student has to individually record their part, and then the teacher has to put it together. And luckily, we have Cal Haynes, who is one of our mentors through the Santa Fe Symphony, and he was able to help Mr. Norman put it together. And it took many, many hours and trying to make sure everybody lines up and puts it together. And the kids were so excited about the performance, and they can't wait to show the rest of their concert in December.
What an excellent job. Very good job. And thank you for the help for the public. Is almost like making an animated movie. Like it takes so much to get stuff done because we're all spread out, but excellent job for the students. Thank you.
And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Pickerel, you played clarinet in the piece.
Yes, I did. Yes, we had some of the other teachers, the private lesson teachers in there playing with the students. So we all kind of chipped in and had fun with it.
Right, and a heck of a mixing job.
Thank you very much.
I'm always impressed when they can synchronize this, and even though there's some editing, but just to make it happen, because I always say we can't even do the Pledge of Allegiance together. I mean, it's so hard, and that was just fabulous.
Well, tempo, I suppose, is what everybody's education is on that one. That's very cool. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our next school board showcase, Ramirez Thomas Elementary School this time, our epic EPIC journey. Dr. Garcia.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Supervising this school is Associate Superintendent Debbie Rael, and she's going to introduce this next presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia, President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent Garcia. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Principal Loretta Booker and her Assistant Principal, Angelique Armijo Ortiz, who will be presenting on their EPIC journey, which stands for Empathy, Positivity, Integrity, and Collaboration. And so with that, Loretta, you can go ahead and get started. And thank you for allowing them to present to all of you this evening.
Absolutely, thank you. Madam President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. As Ms. Rael said, my name is Loretta Booker, and I am thoroughly excited to be here with you this evening representing my community. I am joined by my phenomenal Assistant Principal, Angelique Armijo Ortiz. Our goal of our presentation this evening is for our audience to walk away with an understanding of how our core values has anchored our work in serving students in our community, both before this pandemic hit and now during. So without further ado, I would also like to thank, before we actually get started, our team members, Jessica, Angie, Deeker, and the entire RTE team for making this presentation possible. And we'd also like to thank Ms. Rael for her ongoing support. So I will go ahead and share my screen.
Excellent, and thanks to you both for being here with us this evening.
Thank you. So without further ado, here's our presentation, Ramirez Thomas Elementary School, our epic journey.
Once upon a time, there was a school.
This is a picture of Ramirez Thomas Elementary School, established in 2003.
That began an epic journey.
So as Ms. Rael stated, EPIC stands for our core values: empathy, positivity, integrity, and collaboration. These core values are embedded into our mission and vision statements, which defines our work that we do with our students and how we serve our community.
To teach, practice, and learn empathy.
So as educators, we felt it was extremely important to develop a common understanding of what these core values look like and sound like in action. This enabled us to serve as consistent models for our students. And one of the essential components of social emotional learning is empathy, and we are able to explicitly teach this through our second step curriculum. In the background here, we have a picture of a bulletin board filled with compliment cards. Compliment cards are our way of celebrating students' demonstration of these core values in action. Here we have a compliment card that says, "Rodrigo forgot his jacket. He noticed others had also and brought jackets for his peers." And it's clearly sticking because we also have students publishing writing pieces about it. Here we have "Be Kind to Others" by Crystal Sanchez.
Positivity.
Again, this is our way of articulating what positivity looks like and sounds like in action for us. We're really big on celebrations at Ramirez Thomas. So not only do we begin every meeting that we have with our colleagues by celebrating each other and our work that our students are doing, but we also host writer celebrations at the end of our writing units, where students are able to publish their pieces, and we invite families and community members into our school to help us join in that celebration. And they're also encouraged to leave positive feedback for our students.
Integrity.
So integrity means the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. It's also the state of being whole and undivided. We're able to implement this every day through our ELA curriculum that we use called the Teachers College Readers and Writers Workshop. Here we instill a love of reading for our students, and it's also a foundational piece that we identify the levels of learning for each and every child. Of course, provide direct instruction of grade level standards, but the heart of our instruction really comes with small group instruction, where we're able to differentiate and provide access of these grade level standards to all students. Another way that we do this is by implementing a bilingual education program model, where we utilize students' home language to teach academic content, as well as teaching students to value their own languages and cultures and valuing who they are and where they come from. We know it's our moral responsibility to value the whole child, and this in turn makes our community whole and undivided.
And collaboration amongst faculty.
So Ramirez Thomas is a nationally recognized professional learning community school by Solution Tree. What this means is that we value the strengths that each of us brings. We're able to offer support to each other, and we also value the human connection that we have with each other and with our students. We use this human connection to solve problems and share ideas. Here we have some of our PLC teams that we have, and we also consider our leadership team as our guiding coalition. We're actually engaging in a book study right now as well to be able to reflect on our own growth as educational leaders. And we're on that path of continuous improvement to do what's best for students.
Students, families, and community partners.
So again, believing in the power of collaboration, not only amongst ourselves as educators, but also teaching our students how to collaborate with each other and make meaning of their learning. We also value the partnership that we have from our families and community members, and we like to capitalize on what they offer us.
Then the virus hit.
So this is our new norm, as we all know. Here's a picture of all 6 of our students who attended the first day of hybrid, eating lunch together in our cafeteria. And this is a picture of our support team inventorying our new math curriculum, following all social distancing and mask wearing protocols.
The team did its very best to continue on their epic journey while in a virtual learning environment.
So because of the solid foundation we were able to build from our core values of empathy, positivity, integrity, and collaboration, we're able to continue serving students through innovating ways of engagement, through our collaborative efforts, by focusing on student growth and celebrating our successes.
And we are still rocking it.
Absolutely. So despite the challenges that we're all facing, we're still having a lot of fun. Here we have pictures that were submitted of art done during our recycled art club that we have on Wednesdays. We have students doing yoga. We have a music assignment that was submitted virtually. We have pictures of published pieces from our first virtual writers celebration. And we also have a piece published by third grader Yaid Signs on why we should go back to school.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Thank you all for your time and engagement this evening. We really appreciate the opportunity to present this to you.
Thank you so much. You clearly are rocking it. It's awesome. And this really strong work about culture and the joy and all just is so what we need right now. Thank you.
Madam President, if I may.
Go ahead, Rudy.
Just really good. Ramirez Thomas is my district. And since 2003, since the school got built, and Ms. Booker, Mr. Armiro Ortiz, thank you for what you do for the school, and thank you for what you do for the students in that area, as well as all the educators in the district. It's great job. Awesome. The core values that you brought up, great job. The mission statement, it's almost like a mission statement. I think it's a great job. And to serve our community in that area of the town, that's awesome. I appreciate that. The complimentary cards, that's awesome. That's totally great. And all the educators that work at Ramirez Thomas, thank you for what you all do. And I appreciate you guys. And thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Secretary Garcia. We appreciate that very much.
Madam President, just want to say thank you so much. So proud of you guys. That's just awesome. Your culture really comes through. And the community, when you see all of those partners, when I say all of our schools are really community schools in varying degrees, all of the partners that you have brought in, I know it takes extra work coordinating all of that effort, and you guys are really awesome, and so proud of both of you. And I also want to mention that we pull Angelique every now and then to help us fill in here and there, and she's, both of them have been great, because that means more work for Ms. Booker, and Angelique being willing to go in and pitch in where we need her. So thank you both for putting the district first too. We really appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Dr. Gonzalez, did you want to say something?
I was just going to thank them as well. And I really like the focus on the social and emotional learning. It's so needed right now. And I'm hoping that you continue that with the remote learning, and I'm sure you are. So thank you for all you do.
And then the virus hit. I think that's going to ring in my head for a while now. The storytelling was strong. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Go Bears, go Bears, go Bears.
Go Bears.
Excellent job.
Okay. Moving on our agenda. Thank you, ladies. Good to see you. We have Roman numeral 5, our union update. Is Ms. Mayer of the NEA with us, or anybody from the union? I don't believe so. Okay, well, we can always do that at a later time on the agenda if she joins us. After that, we have Roman numeral 6, public forum. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Mr. Cody Donarski will be facilitating public forum for us this evening. Mr. Donarski.
Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, good evening. There are 11 people signed up for public comment tonight. Rules for public forum. Please listen and speak with respect. No uncivil conduct will be permitted. Please do not discuss any specific student who is not your own. There is no sharing of time. Self-monitor and observe the 3-minute time limit. I will give you a 30-second warning when your time is almost up. Public commentary and dialogue is allowed only during public forum, not throughout the meeting. Please search for answers on common ground. You may speak on any topic, whether it is on the agenda or not. Your input will be taken into consideration. Please be advised that the board may discuss your issue during the meeting, but by law, the board cannot take action on items that are not on the agenda. Please do not discuss any employee matters which may result in disciplinary action. Instead, notify the employee supervisor, the Human Resources Department, or the superintendent. First up is Alice Ladas. Please open the high school tennis courts to first serve users. The next one is from Barry Green. Dear school board members, I am writing to urge you to allow the nonprofit organization First Serve to use the tennis courts at Santa Fe High when they are not in use by high school students. Right now, First Serve has been allowed to preempt all use of the best courts in Santa Fe, the Alto Street courts, Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m. This prevents all other Santa Fe tennis players from using those courts after work, except during the longest days of summer. Allowing First Serve to use the high school courts even part of the week would be very helpful for Santa Fe tennis players that work until 5 p.m. during the week. Thank you for your consideration. Next is from John Dunbar. I completely support the concept of expanding usage of the tennis courts at Santa Fe High, given the increased demand for and shortage of suitable public courts in Santa Fe. Public courts that the city has not maintained and are or will be out of commission. Atalaya Elementary School, 2 courts. They are so eroded they are unsuitable and unsafe for play. The Herb Martinez Park, 4 courts, so eroded they are unsuitable and unsafe for play. Fort Marcy, 2 courts, decay is noticeably accelerating such that those courts will be unusable in a few years. From the school and city's perspective, I suspect establishing a precedent for public access to Santa Fe High tennis courts is an issue. If Santa Fe High opens its gates to tennis players, it probably opens the door to people requesting access to other facilities, fields, basketball courts, whatever. Plus, it may increase the risk of vandals gaining easy access to school grounds. The easiest option to address the precedented issue is to allow First Serve, not the general tennis crowd, access to the Santa Fe High courts. It's easier to coordinate and to control access with a single organized group, especially a public service group like First Serve, which already has inherent links to public schools. If that option is not viable, other options are worth discussion. The hours during which Santa Fe High routinely uses the courts for training of its tennis teams is a crucial piece of information that is unavailable to the public. Perhaps that piece of info makes propositions for public access irrelevant, if the empty hours are ones where public courts are also widely available. Looking forward to constructive discussion at Thursday's school board meeting. This is from Priscilla Roberts. Hello, I wrote last month and wanted to thank you for considering the tennis court situation. I support the use of high school courts for young people participating in the First Serve program. This seems a good use of the facility and should be easy enough to manage and will create more space for play on the town courts. This is from Ann Constable. Dear members of the school board, I would like to add my name to the chorus of recreational tennis players in Santa Fe who are encouraging you to make the high school tennis courts available to more people, either to the public or to the fine nonprofit First Serve, which introduces youth to the sport. Many of the public courts in Santa Fe, and here I have to mention the 2 at Atalaya School, are deteriorating and are unsafe to play on. But demand is increasing. That means that it is often difficult to find a free court at Alto Street, the Train Park, or Fort Marcy. My understanding is that playing time is even more difficult now that First Serve was given access to the 5 Alto Street courts 5 days a week from 3 to 6 p.m. when many working people would like to play. There are hundreds of recreational players in Santa Fe, and we are hoping you might consider some accommodation that would allow more people to use the high school courts when teams/students are not practicing there. That would ease the pressure on the other courts considerably. It would be great, of course, if the city could refurbish some of the existing inventory, but I think we all know that given its financial situation, that is unlikely anytime soon. Thanks for hearing us out. This is from Cynthia Rolfe. Dear Santa Fe School Board, I am adding my voice to those who have already raised the issue to you. The Santa Fe High School tennis courts were refurbished at a taxpayer-funded cost of $2.4 million. Yet, when public courts aren't shut down due to the pandemic, recreational tennis players must share public court time on Santa Fe's 11 playable courts with First Serve, a nonprofit after-school tennis program, because you have denied them the use of those spanking new, expensive courts we built purposely for the kids of Santa Fe. As a result, First Serve has reserved all 5 courts at Alto Park from Monday through Friday from 3 to 6 p.m., leaving only 6 safely playable courts for the public. I propose that the newly renovated courts at Santa Fe High be opened up to First Serve. That way, First Serve could continue their good work and we, tax-paying recreational players, could have access to the remaining safe public courts. The school board said you would address last month's letters at your upcoming virtual meeting, Thursday, November 19th at 5:30 p.m. Please read this email in the minutes of the public meeting. Thank you for your diligent consideration of the concerns raised by the members of this community who fund our public schools. This is from Mary Gray McGee. It is a shame not to let First Serve use the courts. It would also help the community of tennis players to continue using the Alto Street courts. This may not be important on the agenda since the city is closing down for 2 weeks, but please keep it in mind. This is from Anna Montoya. I would like to know why the public cannot use the tennis courts at Santa Fe High and Capitol High. Our tax dollars paid for those courts, we should be able to use them. Albuquerque allows the public to use their public school tennis courts. Can't we ask them how they prevent vandalism, which I'm assuming is the issue? We must find a solution that will allow all tennis players to utilize the public school courts. At the very least, let our youth play on these courts. The city can't seem to maintain the public courts. Go to Laragoite or Herb Martinez tennis courts. Alto and Salvador Perez are in decent shape, but it's just a matter of time before they are not. I have already seen the signs at Alto. Your approval can make a difference. This is from Susan Webster. Dear Santa Fe Public School Board members and Superintendent Garcia, I understand you are dealing with many pressing issues, especially with the challenges the pandemic has thrust upon our school system. I also understand that New Mexico restrictions have tightened up until at least December 1st. However, there is an issue that was brought to your attention last month and which you said you would address at tonight's meeting. Until recently, First Serve and hundreds of recreational tennis players have been forced to share Santa Fe's 11 viable tennis courts. With First Serve taking all 5 courts at Alto Park every weekday afternoon, only 6 public courts remain for the use by the tennis community. Fortunately, there is a solution. As you may be aware, Santa Fe High School recently renovated 9 courts at the cost of $2.4 million. These courts have been kept under lock and key. Public high school courts are, by definition, funded by the public. That's why in most cities and towns, high school courts are shared with the public. We propose that the Santa Fe High School courts be open to First Serve, allowing only First Serve and high school players to use these courts would keep them secure. In addition, recreational players wouldn't need to risk our health playing on decaying public courts. Obviously, with the current shutdown, this isn't an issue right now. However, an effective vaccine is about to be introduced and the seasons will change to springtime. The issue I write about will inevitably continue to be raised until something is done. Please don't kick the issue down the road. The people who live here in Santa Fe have paid $2.4 million to finance what are essentially private tennis courts. We are asking you to contact Second Step and make arrangements now for them to use the high school courts when the governor is allowed to open back up to tennis. This is from Jefferson and Deborah Taylor. To the Santa Fe Board of Trustees, thank you for bringing up this request once again, asking permission for First Serve Tennis to use the courts at Santa Fe High School. This has been a devastating year for everyone, and presently we are in quarantine mode. But as the Reverend Jesse Jackson says, we should just keep hope alive and look forward to a much better 2021. In the meantime, recreational tennis has been a huge stress outlet for hundreds of recreational tennis players. The problem is this scarcity of available public tennis courts in Santa Fe. Moreover, we strongly support the recreational education program that the First Serve Tennis program provides for our youth coming from marginalized communities in Santa Fe. The First Serve program makes a significant positive outlet for children that cannot afford tennis lessons and club memberships. It is important to point out that the First Serve instruction is not a mass gathering. If we are to be intellectually honest, it is held outdoors and the instruction is the essence of distance learning, 10 to 12 feet apart, in a highly supervised and healthy setting. Presently, First Serve Tennis has utilized the 5 courts at Alto Park. Our request for your thoughtful consideration is to allow First Serve to conduct its recreational tennis education in 2021 on the newly renovated and magnificent tennis courts at Santa Fe High School. Granting access for First Serve to use the Santa Fe High School courts, publicly financed at $2.4 million, would enable the First Serve instructors to safely distance the instruction, leaving an empty court between each teaching court. Again, First Serve tennis instruction is not a mass gathering, it is just the opposite. Secondarily, allowing First Serve to use the Santa Fe High School courts would free up 5 public courts at Alto Park for recreational players in the afternoons. As school board trustees, you have it in your power to provide a huge win for the Santa Fe tennis community and the First Serve tennis program. Thank you for considering making this progress possible. I also thank you for your service on the Santa Fe School Board. Children are our future. And last is Heidi Klingel. Dear School Board, I am an avid tennis player who relies on the public city courts for access to this sport. While I strongly support the mission of First Serve and want to see the program continue to serve our community's youth, I have found their court use to significantly impact my ability to play. It is not right or reasonable to keep the public school courts closed while the city and state have allowed courts to open elsewhere. Because tennis is one of the few COVID-safe sports available, the city courts have been busier than ever before, making an already limited city resource much more difficult to come by. The education and youth development goals held by any public school institution are in line with First Serve's mission statement, authorizing First Serve's use of the public schools courts only furthers these common goals and benefits Santa Fe youth. As a taxpayer who helped pay for the new courts at Santa Fe High School and as a Santa Fe High alum, I ask that our public school infrastructure be available to First Serve. Just as the city has, surely the school board can navigate following the state's health orders while allowing tennis play during times when we are not ordered to stay at home. And that completes public forum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Donarski. As ever, wonderful reading. And we appreciate everyone who wrote in, even if your voice is somewhat different from Mr. Donarski's. No, seriously, we do appreciate when people let us know what they're thinking about. And clearly tonight it's tennis and First Serve. Okay, moving on to board announcements and follow-up. First, we have the Citizens Review Committee. Any update there?
Hi, Madam President.
Hello, Board Member Bozay.
Hello. I do not have an update to provide tonight as neither I nor Vice President Price were able to attend the meeting last night. So I'm going to be touching base tomorrow and rewatching the video so that I can get caught up, but I have no update to report tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thought that was the case. And CRC is meeting weekly these days. On the audit committee update, I will just go ahead and do that unless Dr. Gonzalez wants to jump in. But just so, and just to say again out loud, the purpose of this section on the agenda is in part just for the board to provide updates in the manner we can, which is of course when we have a approved agenda that's been published, et cetera, that's when we can talk amongst ourselves. And keep us connected to these very important committees. And I hope you all remember that I really do love the audit committee. I really do love the audit committee. There's been a lot of great work there. Thanks in no small part to Dr. Garcia and the finance team, as well as our independent auditors, JAG, the Jaramillo Accounting Group, we think the A is for, and as well as Mike V. Hill Associates, who has come on board and helped us. And we had an exit conference with the auditors, and we will be seeing the final audit for acceptance by the board in the coming weeks. So it's been a lot of work, but the audit did get completed on time. Anything else you want to add to that, Dr. Garcia?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it will be done by December because the state auditor we have to get it certified by the state auditor. And I know that it's sort of an avalanche, of audits that get to the state auditor's office. So as soon as they certify it, then it comes to the board for acceptance.
Right. It's into the state auditor on time, and then we may see it, it sounds like, in the new year after the state auditor works through all the audits that they need to look at. Thank you. Moving on to Roman numeral 8, superintendent announcements and follow-up. Dr. Garcia.
Yes, thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Ms. Siegel had suggested December 2nd or 3rd. And I know that I had emailed, but I can't remember what date we decided for a virtual, yes.
Can you please I know Linda Siegel, excellent job, but can you introduce her to, if the general public is actually watching?
Yes, and she'll be introduced in well, yes, she's our lobbyist, and she will be a part of Roman numeral 9. But thank you, Mr. Garcia. So December, looking at the calendar, I know the school boards association starts their conference on the 3rd, so I thought the 2nd would be best. If there's, I know it's not an action item, but if you can give me some sort of sense that that will work for most people.
For a breakfast time or what?
Well, it'll just be virtual. We call it the legislative breakfast, but it'll be probably much shorter.
And in the morning.
It'll be it's always early in the morning, like 7:30.
That's fine.
And since you have school boards on the 3rd, it seems like the 2nd would make more sense.
So roughly it would be December 2nd, it sounds like is what's being proposed at 7:30 for maybe an hour. I think the request is letting Dr. Garcia know, which if anybody can't answer, that's probably all right. But if that is all right, and that's good for me.
I think that's doable for me. I might have to hop off for a work call depending on what my schedule is like that day, but I should be able to make that work.
I'm fine, Madam President. It's Rudy.
I'm fine too.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to just update. We started all the planning for State of the Schools. It'll look very different. It will be virtual like our graduations were this last year. We won't be live. We're going to, have it all taped and then ready to go live. We're looking at December 11th to post our State of the Schools. So just a heads up about that. It's hard to watch a long program, so it'll probably run about 40 minutes. And I'll be in touch with you, Madam President, about doing a welcome. And last but not least, you all were aware that this is our last week of our hybrid voluntary program. We told our parents that, and I've got to look at the calendar, that we will, when we come back in January, depending on how the numbers look, we will try to make some sort of decision by January 7th to let them know if we will start with another voluntary program in 2 weeks after that, so that people will have, hopefully they're not traveling, but if they did, there would be a 2-week delay before we bring kids back. And I hope that we can make the voluntary program work again and build from there in terms of reopening. Right now, it looks like it's a very complex set of metrics and situations, context for how schools can reopen. There's a new toolkit, may be out today or will be out soon with more guidance. And hopefully at the meeting on December 10th, we can provide the board more definitive guidance that was provided to us by the PED. And that concludes my updates.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia.
You bet.
Okay, moving swiftly along, Roman numeral 9 on our agenda is our presentation on 2021 legislative priorities, which I'm guessing will feature the oracle that is Linda Siegel that guides so much of our work with the legislature. It's good to see you. Welcome.
That is
All right,
correct.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Siegel, are you on? She is.
I'm here.
There she is. So thank you. I was looking at my agenda, so I couldn't see the tiles. So we don't have a presentation with a PowerPoint. We thought we would have more of a conversation with you tonight. And I thought we would start with Ms. Siegel, just sort of giving us the lay of the land and what she's seeing, what, you know, she really has her ear to the ground and has been at a lot of the committee meetings. And so we will start with Ms. Siegel. And I will ask Mr. Granata, although he didn't know that I was going to ask him if he would like to share some of his thoughts. And then I will also share with you my thinking about it. And then you have an agenda item, I believe, where you all will have an opportunity to take any action if you choose to. You really don't have to. All right, take it away, Ms. Siegel.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Garcia and President Noble. Thanks for the opportunity to change my shirt today. Let me give you a little picture of what's happening. You may have heard the governor's press conference today on Facebook, where she announced that there will be a special session on Tuesday. Not sure what time yet. And the purpose of that session will be for 3 issues. For well, first, let me say there's about $300 million of federal money that we haven't allocated or that we need to reallocate because we haven't spent it. And we've got to do that before the end of this December. So the 3 issues she's talking about working on in the session, have the legislators work on this session, is unemployment, increasing that amount to $300 extra per week. Assistance, financial assistance for housing, and grants for small businesses. And the idea, at least at this point, is to roll them all into one bill and pass it out of both chambers in one day. And certainly the legislature can do that by rolling the clock and doing all those legislative things. So we can expect that on Tuesday. Now, the actual legislative session, which by the Constitution has to start on the 3rd Tuesday of January, there's a lot of discussion about how we're going to do that. Some of you may have heard that the Legislative Council voted last week to allow the executive, the director of Legislative Council Services to contract with the Santa Fe Convention Center because they have about 7 or 8 fairly large rooms that could be used for hearing rooms. And that contract would happen with the proviso that they be able to cancel if something changes. At this moment, it appears that they want to go forward with the 60-day session, starting on the 3rd Tuesday of January and going for 60 days. The House has voted in the past to have virtual sessions with some people coming in. The Senate has in the past, for the last special session, voted to come in. So even for this Tuesday session, the House has said they're going to do it virtually, and the Senate, of course, because they didn't change their rules to allow virtual, will be going in. We don't know yet how the 60-day session will be constituted. There has been talk and suggestions, and even suggestions from the governor that we have 2-week session, we pass a budget, we pass other critical bills that could create revenue, and then we recess for a period of time and try to come back in a few months. There's been talk of just postponing, coming in for that one day because they're required by the Constitution to come in that day and start a session, of then recessing and waiting till later. So we don't know yet what the session is going to look like. What we do know is no one will be allowed in the Capitol except for legislators and staff. There will be no public allowed in the Capitol. The idea of using the convention center is so that perhaps some members of the public will be allowed to go in and testify in person. All of that is still up in the air. We do know that we are still projecting almost $1 billion deficit for the next fiscal year for FY22. Though we ended the last fiscal year quite a bit better than we anticipated. And so our reserves are around 2 billion, but we are drawing out of those reserves for the current fiscal year. So the whole money picture can change in a moment, and we'll have a more current update on potential revenue in December or early January. So that's what the environment looks like. You know, the House has been told to only do 3 bills each. The Senate, of course, will likely have no restrictions on how many bills they do. And I don't know if that's really going to stand, because a lot of House members are pushing back on that. As you may remember, in a typical 60-day session, there's 1,500 at least bills introduced, memorials, constitutional amendments, etc. introduced. And we can't do that in a virtual session, or even a session where the legislators have to get in their cars and drive over to the convention center to have hearings. That's just impossible. So there may be those restrictions on the number of bills. So substantive legislation that people want, it may have to wait. So that's my overview of the picture of what's happening in the legislative session, potential legislative sessions.
Madam President, if I may, Ms. Siegel, would you also talk about capital?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It is highly unlikely there will be any capital. And as you know, all of the general fund capital that was allocated from the last session was swept, not from the special session, but from the real session. All of that money was swept. So I would anticipate, we haven't been told yet, even the legislators don't know, but it's highly unlikely there will be capital. And I would think, let's not waste that would be my recommendation, let's not waste our time on that right now.
Thank you.
Madam President, I have a question.
Go ahead, Secretary Garcia.
So thank you for the excellent job that, Linda, you do. You've been there for many, many years. As it's a whole change of what's happening there at the Roundhouse. As you know, the Merry Merry Roundhouse. Who said that? Ernie Mills back in the days. The Merry Merry Roundhouse. And
Yep.
At least we gave you some time to change your shirt, but I like the yellow. It looks good. Awesome job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so really quick, as the governor, as the mayor, from New York, talked about closing schools and what they're doing in the last 2 or 3 days, de Blasio, the mayor of New York, once again. And so do you have any indication as to what the governor is going to do, or the public education department secretary is going to do in regards to schools and where we're going with this stuff? Do you have any idea what we're doing? Or what they're doing?
Madam President, Secretary Garcia, Rudy. No.
You can call me Rudy because I've known you for a long, long time. 25 years ago. You are getting your direction from the PED secretary, and I believe the governor has sort of left it to him. So I can't say that I have any information you don't have. I appreciate that, because as our superintendent and the educators on our team and everybody else, as well as you on our board, is like, we just got to follow what the governor does. So I just want to know if you had any inside information on this stuff. But thank you, Linda. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Dr. Gonzalez. You're muted.
Muted.
After I did all that introduction,
Sorry.
sorry.
We missed your preamble. You're gonna.
It's good to see you, Linda. When you were
Thank you.
talking a little earlier, you were talking about the reserves, and you said drawing that they were going to draw out of the reserves for, and I missed what it was for.
Well, Madam President, Madam Secretary, no, your board member
I'm
Gonzalez.
Carmen.
Dr. Garcia. So the reserves, they're doing that for the general budget that they created in the special session. It was always intended that somewhere around 300, 400,000 would be drawn from the reserves, depending on the federal money. So that's what I was referring to. So we will go into the next budget with about probably 1.4 billion still in the reserves, but with a $1 billion projected deficit that will be gone quickly.
Dr. Garcia.
Now, there's a few other things we'd like to add and to also hear Ms. Siegel's perspective on it that you might find interesting. There was some discussion about holding districts, some people say whole harmless, safe harmless, just keep us where we're at.
Yes.
On funding, because there's what, 12,000 students down statewide. Have those students gone out of state? Are they in homeschool? Are they in private school? No one really knows. We have 47 that we just don't know where they went. There's more than that didn't return, but I mean, you just don't know. I mean, we've contacted every way of contacting students have been done, and we still don't know if the families, left the country. I mean, we just don't know. And so, but when you look at it as the aggregate, the impact to public education would be significant. And if they do return and it's not properly budgeted for, that's going to be a train wreck also. So, one hope of something that, I think merits discussion with the legislators is this even possible? The last I heard was that they were going to just run the budget like they normally do and just see how it all falls out next year. There's that. I think the state, Linda, I don't know if you remember if it was 47 million that they took a credit statewide on the CARES Act. For Santa Fe, it was about $1 million. I really wish that would be restored.
Yeah.
It really has negatively impacted us, having had that money taken. I understand that they're going to build it back into the budget, but I'd like to see that one-time CARES Act money restored. Doesn't sound like it's going to, but if it would be a one-time allocation to the districts, I think it really would make a difference. In other words, put it in non-recurring, I think would be a reasonable solution or recommendation. The other is there have been some subsequent unfunded mandates recently because of COVID that have been tough. And that is, we have taken on a lot of responsibility that DOH really should have because they're so short-staffed with contact tracing. And the burden that it has put on staff, I mean, every weekend, it seems like, I don't know how many evenings we're working on this, and it's a lot. And it's a lot to ask of staff as well. It's just never ending. And it would be nice to be able to have some additional funding to support this work, this extra work that has come to the districts in that regard. And then I wanted to ask Josh if you wanted to share we are a plaintiff in the Ozzie Martinez lawsuit, and Transform Education New Mexico has a platform. Josh has been attending a lot of those meetings. Would you like to share some highlights from that?
Good evening, Board President Noble, board members, Dr. Garcia. And just to kind of echo what Ms. Siegel was saying and yourself, Dr. Garcia. One of the things that the district, I think, should focus on is making sure there's no more cuts. And with what Dr. Garcia mentioned about the CARES Act, in essence, the board, the district lost about $1.1 million when the state took credit for that CARES Act money. And so in essence, that was a cut that the district had to face. And since the pandemic, the overall cuts to the district have been really significant. I lose count. I think it's around $8 million at this point in time. Obviously, with the pandemic, it really puts a lot of stress on obviously the whole state and education within the whole state, but also with what's going on with the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit. It really has highlighted the discrepancy and disparities within the state. Santa Fe Public Schools is really lucky in the support that we get from the voters in terms of educational support for technology. And so we were lucky and able to put up a remote learning system, whereas other districts such as Gallup are still struggling with that currently. And you have probably saw in the paper and in the news, the LFC has been pushing and focusing on the loss of education during this time, and their numbers are fairly frightening. And so that's one of the concerns from LFC, is how to make up for this lost time. And there's been a lot of talk about how to use money in the reform fund, which comes from districts essentially not using K through 5+ and extended learning time. And so there's a lot of money in that reform fund, and I guess it's really up to the legislature and how they intend to use that money. The LFC and the LESC, the Legislative Finance Committee and the Legislative Educational Study Committee, are both pushing for, extended learning time, longer school year, and things of that nature. But obviously, when we're in a remote setting, it's kind of hard to figure that out. And so that's something that the legislature is going to have to tackle, essentially how to use that money in the reform fund. And like I said, there's quite a lot of money in that reform fund, over $100 million. I think in terms of Transform Ed New Mexico, I know that they're focusing on satisfying the judgment from the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit and pushing the public education department to come up with a platform and start implementing that platform. I think that the overall push from that entity is focusing on the teacher pipeline, making sure that we can rebuild the education profession and build it back up again, as well as making sure that there are no more cuts to education. Hopefully we can maintain the raises that we got last time. I can't imagine that there's going to be any talk of pay increases for teachers, but at the same time, we can't really afford to incur any more cuts. And so that's kind of the perspective that they've been pushing for at this point in time.
I also wanted to add that one concern, when they say, and I'm not talking about top level administration, but when they say, okay, we're going to give teachers a raise, or everyone but administrators a raise, creates compaction, because we have principals, assistant principals, coordinators, directors, and whatnot that probably would do better to just stay as a level 3 teacher, work less days, less stress. And so it, just like we have compaction in other salary schedules, it can start to erode that, because there used to be a salary schedule for principals. And that was tough to not be able to, give them that 1%. And over time, it starts to make a difference. And so I think somehow we have to communicate that everyone in the system brings value and have bills to pay and families and everything else, just like everyone else in the system. And so I know it's not popular, but it does concern me, particularly for our principals and assistant principals that are not their salaries, especially if they're entry level, are not that far off from a level 3 licensure teacher. I think all of our employees, I know that the money isn't there, but again, if we don't have qualified teachers in the classroom, it's not going to help to have 15 extra days or 20 extra days, and we're not competitive, and we're becoming less so. So in any way that we can help support compensation for educators, I think even if it's a fraction, we need to look at that, because they're critical. Having a strong teacher in every classroom, qualified teacher, is our bread and butter, right? And it's hard to retain.
Well, and just to jump in on that, Dr. Garcia, you said a couple important things just then, I think, including, how to communicate and support compensation for educators. And I would say, we can talk about if we need to take action when we have that option on our agenda tonight on this. But my question for you and for Ms. Siegel and Mr. Granata is it is, how can we, especially in the shifting sands, and it's hard to cut through so much of what's going on right now, how can this board do that? Raise its voice to communicate, what's important and how we hope the legislature will approach these things. And it strikes me that the simplest message of, that we need to support compensation for educators, that we can't put extra on this system in terms of contact tracing without funding, that we can't, take charges when we get stimulus money that's meant for things, and would love to see the CARES Act money restored. But if it's a letter, if it's whatever it needs to be, I think we have a very savvy team here. Appreciate really how you're all seeing things, and I would imagine, and of course board members can weigh in if they'd like to, but that this board is ready to support you all in raising smart solutions and bringing the weight of whatever we can to make that happen.
Well, Madam President, if I might
please
comment here. I think we start with the breakfast where you lay it all out to at least our delegation. Now, there are some interesting possibilities that may happen in the Senate. As you know, the Senate has changed a bit in its composition, and we have a number of new women, and the Democratic caucus will be meeting on Saturday to elect their leadership. And there's obviously several people running: Jerry Ortiz-Pino, Daniel Ivy Soto, Mimi Stewart, Linda Lopez, and Pete Campos. Now, depending on who wins, perhaps Nancy Rodriguez will be the chair of finance, which could be a very beneficial thing to Santa Fe. But that, of course, remains to be seen. Because we're going to be in a very strange environment about how to communicate with our legislators and when to communicate during the session, it's going to be practically impossible, really. We're going to have to call people on their cell phones. We're going to have to arrange maybe little Zoom meetings with people, possibly, but most of our work is going to have to happen before the session. Most of our communication with legislators has to happen before the session. And that's just not Santa Fe, but I know your your associations, the Superintendent Association, the board, School Board Association. I'm sure that you all are talking about there. Let's get our message and let's talk to legislators now. And the bottom line message is you've got to maintain your current funding. I mean, that seems like the most important, and then whatever add-ons can address the teacher salary increases. So we got a lot of work to do in a month and a half with communicating with legislators, many of whom are new. And we have 2 new ones in our delegation, Tara Lujan and Linda Serrato. Now, Tara has been participating in a lot of the interim committees because she got appointed, and she's actually a representative. And I've been very impressed with her questions. She's really engaged, and many of us know Tara from politics in Santa Fe. So that's what we're going to have to do. That's what everybody in every school district is going to have to do, is talk to their legislators. The House Appropriations Committee will be virtually the same with a couple of new members, because most of those members came back. Rudy Martinez is not coming back. And of course, Joseph Sanchez is not coming back. So there'll be 2 new Democrats on that committee. The Senate Finance Committee could have 2 or 3 new members if there's moving around and all. So those are the important committees, but every legislator needs to have the message that you've got to maintain the existing funding for the public schools as the bottom line.
Madam President, if I may, this is Rudy.
Go ahead, Secretary Garcia.
Just really quick, I understand the funding. Linda, you got it. Dr. Garcia, you understand the funding. The raises, we did what we had to do with the raises for the staff. And as Mayor de Blasio, as New York said this morning, one of the things I'm very concerned about is the message that we need to get to our legislators is that we have children with special needs. And how do we help out those children? It's not just about, it is about funding for the entire schools, but that's one of the concerns I have. We have children out there that, they're 5, 6, 7 years old, and they need to interact with other individuals and other kids. And so I understand the budget, funding, the raises, I get all that stuff. You all know that. And so the message is, one of the things, I'm just very concerned about our kids in our community, because I get the chills talking right now, because in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, they're going to take care of us. And that's what's happening. And so I just want to say that. But thank you, Linda, for what you do, Superintendent, as well as the staff, everything. Thank you.
Other questions, further discussion? The contact tracing thing, Dr. Garcia, are we required to do that?
Yes. And now they've added another thing that I'm pushing back a little bit on, and that is we have been doing all of the reporting and contact tracing for anyone who's been on campus. But, students, staff that aren't on campus that might test positive, we have not taken that on in terms of contact tracing. Can you imagine? And with the rates where they're at, Bonita Het is the lead on that. She has some support from some of the nurses. But nonetheless, it is all that has to go into the reporting, notifying the community, getting the messages translated, getting that out, approving them. And every case is so nuanced. This additional layer, it's just a lot. And I get it that Department of Health is overloaded, but there's only so much we can do. And it's just a lot. And I do feel like we need we need some support.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't realize that. It's good to understand because there's some nuance there, but that does seem like a crazy amount of work, especially with the caseload where it is now. Yes, Board Member Bozé.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, I just wanted to say some support for what your statement was earlier about creative solutions and thinking outside the box and being consistent with our messaging. That I'm fully on board with that.
And maybe even the contact tracing thing, it's a different type of advocacy. It's probably not as much for the legislature, but you know, our nurses could be spending time on social and emotional wellness and some of the things that we know are real issues in kids' lives. Yeah. Other thoughts? Questions? Comments?
On Madam President, Dr. Garcia, since some of the composition of the Senate has changed, we do feel like there will be the votes for the constitutional amendment to take a percentage out of the early childhood for early childhood out of the land grant permanent fund. So that could be a positive thing for the future.
That's always been one of our
sorry, Dr. Gonzalez,
planks in our platform, Madam President. So I forgot to mention that, you know. But isn't there also talk of using a small percentage from the land grant permanent fund just to fund education generally and not just early childhood, because of that early childhood fund that was developed?
I think there was, Madam President, Dr. Garcia, I think there was talk earlier, but I don't know if that's going to be part of that constitutional amendment or not.
The thing that I've heard is about money flowing potentially from the land grant permanent fund to the early childhood trust fund, and then that being the dispersal mechanism there. And sorry, Dr. Gonzalez, did you?
Madam President, I think. Oh, go ahead.
I think it was already answered, but I do know that we do have more educators that were elected this time, former teachers, retired teachers, and that's going to be helpful, I would think.
Yeah.
Madam President, I had a question for Ms. Siegel.
Yeah.
If given where things are at and how busy, do you think that the breakfast or the virtual meeting will be productive, or do you think a written document would be better? What's your sense?
I think that it's really important, Madam President, Dr. Garcia, for legislators to hear from you all the stories, just what you're talking about now, that who's doing the contact tracing, how important it is to keep the budgets where they are, because you can't plan right now for anything. You have no idea what's going to happen. So I think also there should be a written document, but I think having the conversation with people will be helpful. And I'm hoping that since no one's going on vacation now, and since it's a week when there aren't any other hearings, that we can get everybody on board, especially our 2 new reps, to hear what's happening at the schools. So yes, I think it is valuable.
Thank you. Final thoughts? This is great. Let's do more things where we just have a conversation.
I thought you would prefer it sans PowerPoint.
Hallelujah. I mean, honestly, I think there should be a good reason for a PowerPoint, and otherwise it should always be a conversation. Anyway, thank you for joining us and sharing your wisdom. Ms. Siegel, it's good to see you. And we, count on you. It's all on your shoulders now.
It's on yours too, of course. Thank you so much.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you all.
Action items. We have 6 items under the consent agenda. Dr. Garcia wanted to, do you want to remove one for a separate vote? Or
yes,
okay.
Well, and it wasn't on contracts. It was the consent item A5, Proposal number 5, General 2021, Mandela International Magnet School. I just wanted to have staff talk about it. You don't have to vote on it separately. I just wanted to pull that out before you voted on consent, just because I thought it was important to have that conversation.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and have that conversation.
Yes, Ms. Wagner, did you want to talk about it, or were you going to have Mr. Romero?
My other question would be on the consent agenda is, I just don't have my brain turned on. Board Member Bose was good last time. If anybody was missing from our last school board meeting, and then we might vote on that to offer the option of recusal.
Ms. Wagner or Mr. Romero? Hello?
Don't see either of them right now on with us.
They were, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
think-
because
I'm
I
guessing-
can't see anybody right now.
Are you
there
pushing
she is.
buttons?
She can't unmute. She's trying to, she's trying to unmute.
Okay.
Christy
is nodding. She can't unmute. All right.
And I can't
Rudy?
see anybody, so we're in great shape.
Well, I can see you all. I can see Christy.
I'm
saying
like
that she can't
totally in the
unmute.
blind. I hate that when that happens.
Oh, you
Can
got
you
it?
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, yay.
Christy can
Okay.
unmute.
Yeah, I felt trapped. Like I can't tell them I can't unmute.
And then I couldn't see you.
Yeah.
It's a freaky feeling when you're all alone on Zoom.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board President, board members. Superintendent Garcia asked if I might speak to Mandela International Magnet School construction project architect selection. There's two things I want to highlight. One is Mandela was allocated about $4 million in the 2017 bond to initiate construction improvements, renovations, rebuild of their school campus to align with the programmatic needs of the International Baccalaureate program. They were placed at an elementary school meant to be a temporary house or a temporary home until we could fund and program and build them appropriate space for a middle high school program. So we're really excited to announce that we're nearing the end of our 2017 bond cycle implementation and that we are working hard to move forward those projects. But I also wanted to mention that we are cognizant of the fact that, well, hello, Gatsby, would like to say hello and congratulations to Mandela International Magnet School for this contract. Good timing, Gats. We're very cognizant of the fact that the CRC, the Citizens Review Committee, is working on another allocation and prioritization for the Mandela International Magnet School project. And we will move very thoughtfully and incrementally to tie these two bonds together and make sure that our program is not redundant, that we don't have expenditures that are ahead of ourselves or that have to be redone. Like, we're very aware of the timing of a straddled project that's funded through 2017, and we hope through 2021 GEO bond approval. So I just wanted you to be aware. Yay, we're at the tail end of 2017 and we've got 2021 in our sights. We're going to do everything we can to make it a seamless project. And thank you to our selection committee and team for their recommendation for an architect this evening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wagner, and congratulations on getting to the close somewhat of the 2017 cycle. That's a huge amount of work. Any questions on this? And just to be clear, what we're voting on is the selection of the architect.
Madam President, I have a question. Who's the architect? Sorry.
Oh, no, we can't hear you, Christy. I can see you talking.
You're muted again.
V. Hill and Associates. Okay, sorry, Christy. You are not unmuted again. We could see you talking, but yeah. But Gabe's here now.
So
So
Madam
maybe
President,
one of you will be able to unmute. Yes, Rudy, go ahead.
so we're looking at a 2017 bond, which the CRC actually, we moved forward with this. As ex-board member Cashman realizes that we actually prioritized this new bond that we went out for in 2021 for I think it's middle schools and elementary schools, because we already took care of the high schools. And so Mandela, when we had the $2.some million to go to, they were at the old Vargas school, right? Yeah, they were. So now we're spending $2 million for them actually to be at La Gorte. So is that what we're spending out? So how sure are we, the taxpayers, realizing that $2 million that Mandela's going to stay at La Gorte? And so this is one of the priorities for the CRC for the next 2021 bond. Is that, I have this question.
Ms. Wagner, are you able to unmute? No, it doesn't look that way. Board Member Bose also had her hand up. Go ahead.
So those are just the questions I have, because remember, back in the days, when Joe Boyd was a superintendent, he actually installed Mandela. And so Mandela has been floating around to different locations for this location, that location, this excellent school, don't get me wrong. And so now we're actually going to spend money on a school that is it actually really at a site that they're going to be there forever? Because La Gorte needs a lot of work to be done. And so those are questions.
Madam President, this is precisely why I wanted this pulled out, and also for CRC members that might be watching, because there is a Mandela portion that the CRC is dealing with right now. And this was actually a question that I asked Deputy Superintendent Wagner, precisely what Mr. Garcia was saying. So can you explain the way that you explained it to me, Ms. Wagner?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So really simply put, Mandela International Magnet School has educational specifications that have driven a master plan on the La Gorte campus. We have hired an architect to execute that master plan, knowing that we have to really wait for part 2, and that is an allocation from the Citizens Review Committee for the 2021 bond, because $4 million doesn't rebuild or build any campus for a middle high school. And so the architect will now work with us to study the CRC's new recommendation or updated recommendation and respond to that. So simplified, we won't execute any billable hours or proceed with any work until the Citizens Review Committee brings to you a recommendation for the second allocation of the bond, which we hope the voters will approve next spring. And so the work, the contract award that you're approving for tonight, or the architect selection you're approving, has to go into contract negotiations and won't really result in specific work that ties us to the La Gorte campus to really answer Board Member Garcia's question. It's tied to the programming. And so we're sort of waiting for the outcome of the Citizens Review Committee, their recommendation to you, your acceptance of their recommendations about, is it La Gorte where we're placing them? Is it looking at alternate locations? Is it looking for best price, best location? So that's what I'm telling you, is that we are proceeding with caution, but we need an architect by our side to study and analyze the project as we move forward, knowing we will not proceed with anything on a campus or in scope that we're not confident in. And that's what I wanted to highlight, is that we are very aware of partnering with the architect, but not getting ahead of ourselves in the detail of the work or the billable work until we have a clear picture of where we're headed with the 2021 tax dollars. I hope that helps.
Yes, that does, Madam President, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Rudy.
So we have $2 million set aside for Mandela, correct? Yes or no? And also, so we're hiring the architect for how much money to do a master plan? Just a master plan is you're going to be located here, there, here, whatever else. That's what we're doing, right? We're not approving $2.some million and assuming that we're going to approve the other $2 million if the voters approve it in, the voters approve it in 2021.
Board President, shall I?
Please, yes, go ahead, Ms.
So-
Wagner.
So the Mandela has been allocated, I believe, $4 million in the 2017 bond. That $4 million is not exclusively for an architect. Architectural fees are proportionate to the maximum allowable construction dollars. So we actually aren't recommending a contract amount for the architect this evening. We're recommending that you approve our number one selected architect so that we might negotiate a contract that is the appropriate proportion to allocated dollars by the CRC. And so right now we only have $4 million to work with. We may consider asking them to study other parts of a master plan that has already been paid for. So we're not paying them to do a master plan. We're paying them to begin problem solving a phased approach to building out the master plan, whether it be $4 million worth of work or $24 million worth of work if we get more money from the CRC in the 2021 GEO bond. So their contract amount will only be driven by the construction dollars allocated for the project.
Madam President, once again, Chrissy, so there's $4 million sitting in the bank there that we can actually hire an architectural firm to design a construction document or for a master plan. And how much is the contract for the architect?
So Secretary Garcia, we don't know how much the contract for the architect is. Tonight, we just approved the selection. As Christy's been saying, they will bring an amount, presumably in the contract for the architect, proportional to what's allocated when they have a more complete picture of the budget, taking into account, ojalá, the 2021 bond.
So thank you for that, Madam President, because okay, thank you. So we're just approving the staff to move forward to actually negotiate with the architect firm. And we will, as a board, look at the architect's contract as into what they're doing.
That's correct. We get the contract at a later date. Right now, we're just approving the selection.
Okay,
of,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christy.
Other questions on this? Thanks very much, Christy, for the clarity and boiling it down. That was very well done in terms of how complex these things are. And for what it's worth, I hope we are, I know, of course, there's a lot of detail in the work, as Ms. Wagner outlined pretty well as we go forward, that is all variable depending on budget, that sort of thing. I hope we're working on all our buildings being flexible spaces and not too grounded in specific details. And I know that there is a science and that this team is plugged into a lot of national expertise, best practices. We have national experts here. It's a lot of work. And as this evolves, I hope that we push the innovative edge of flexibility because that must be what we know. Change is constant.
And those
Anyway.
flexible, Madam President, those flexible spaces, I mean, you're so right on. And that was the focus also with ECO is, you know, what's really important now may not be where we want to be in 10 years. And so that's been a major focus is flexibility in the usage of space. Also, I think Mandela was, not Mandela, but Milagro also.
Yes, I remember that from the Milagro plans and discussions. Okay, what I would suggest, just for the sake of it, is that we do consent items 1 through 5, and then we vote on the minutes separately. Because again, I don't remember. Everybody was here last week. I will go ahead and make a motion to approve consent items 1 through 5, the budget adjustment requests, contracts over 50,000, October accounts payable, payroll vouchers, and invoice report, as well as what we just discussed. Proposal number 5, approving the architectural selection for the Mandela International Magnet School.
I will second that. Oh.
Okay, Dr. Gonzalez seconds, I
Okay.
think. And we'll do a roll call vote. Secretary Garcia,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Bozay,
Yes.
and the president votes yes. Thank you again, Christy. Ms. Wagner, Deputy Superintendent. Now for the minutes of November 5th. I'll go ahead and move approval of those as well.
I'll second that. Yep. Sarah, you can have that one.
I know we each paused waiting for the other this time.
And then you paused to beat too long the same or something.
No
Okay.
time.
Sarah can do this one.
Board Member Bozay is our official second on the approval of the minutes. I think we were all there. I don't know why this
I
is.
think we were all there too.
Okay.
I was thinking about it, but I think we were all there.
Thank you, Board Member Bozay. I don't know why that one stuck in my brain. But we'll do a roll call vote. Secretary Garcia.
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Board Member Bozay.
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Moving on to item 11, thank you. Board discussion and possible action. Does anyone on the board member or Dr. Garcia invite you to weigh in too, feel that we want to take action on our legislative priorities? I don't see a clear action we would take, and I appreciate where we went with that conversation. Board Member Bozay.
Madam President, Dr. Garcia, members of the board, I just wanted to, it's not specifically about an action that we should take, but I wanted to touch again on what Linda said at the end regarding personal stories, because in the past advocacy work that I've done, that was always, I mean, you can have your bulleted priorities that everyone is in agreement about, but it was always taught to us that the meaningful stuff is in the stories that we see or hear from the classroom, from the teachers, from the students that have been impacted, that those are the things that the lawmakers really need to hear that make the most impact. So we should just be thinking about those things so that we're prepared.
Hallelujah. Any other discussion on this?
Madam President.
Go ahead, Secretary
I
Garcia.
know we're actually on legislative priorities, but can I get on the next meeting? Can I get an update on ECOWAS and what's happening with that? Because we have $10 million that was actually out there, and I think we hired an architectural firm about before the COVID virus hit. So I just want to know where we're at with it, what's happening with that. If you can give us an update, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll work with the superintendent to figure out a time, because, well, we can move on to advanced planning now too, as we're getting into the holiday season.
Just a moment.
Yes, please. Go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez.
So, how are we going to get this agenda together? We are not meeting again before that December 2nd breakfast. So how do we get ourselves organized so that we're all speaking the same talk?
Madam President, we typically will create an agenda for you and we'll send it out, and we'll probably just have a conversation like we did tonight.
Okay.
Where we'll bring, Linda will be there. We'll talk, you guys will chime in what your thoughts are, that you support these concepts, or we ask them questions too, what their thoughts, or they may have questions about what's going on in the schools. So it usually winds up being a conversation. I mean, that's my thought, but whatever you all would like us to
Ms.
prepare for
Siegel
you.
mentioned the written document. Do you have thoughts on that, Dr. Garcia? And that, to me, at previous legislative breakfasts has been really helpful, and it's a little bit of a tight turnaround with Thanksgiving. So
we can bullet. We can have like a list of bulleted points on our agenda for the meeting, and we can, I'll run it by you guys. See if you want to add anything.
And to Dr. Gonzalez's point, that document, in previous years has always been very helpful to me in that it does give us a way to get on the same page.
I think that's important I think we probably are on the same page, but just to see it all out there would be good. And I'm glad.
Okay, yeah, we can do that for you and get that all out.
Okay, thank you.
I also wanted to mention on advanced planning that the CRC agreed to not have a meeting. Well, the next meeting would be December 2nd. So it's not on there, but they're not meeting this Wednesday because the district is closed. But they will be meeting on December 2nd.
Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, they are meeting weekly now, right? So it would be the 2nd and likely then the 9th. And then, as with the board meetings, we have our next board meeting on December 10th, and then there would be a break for both the board and the CRC until January.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything further on advanced planning?
Just really quick, Madam President, if I may, just to my colleagues, great job that we do. It's a hard job to do and excellent job because it takes a lot of time. And but thank you all for sitting up there and being up here. And I appreciate you all as my teammates, especially the superintendent and her team and everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty sure we appreciate you too.
Oh, one last thing I would like to say is
except when you do that. That's just like a little annoying. Come on.
I just like to say happy Thanksgiving, obviously, right?
Okay.
Happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully no more than 10 people or 5 people at the table. So happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Don't be a super spreader. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thanksgiving.
Be well.
safe.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Joe.
Bye, Joe.
Thanksgiving.